Okay, I'll call finance order.
And I will call W to order. Can I have a motion to accept the July 26th minutes? Moved by Dave, second by Paul, all in favor? Aye. District is. Yeah.
You go there.
Well, do you have any business that you have to do prior to the budget, or are you all set on that?
All no business. Sewer district is just
But
budget.
then review your revenue side and then we'll go to the expense side.
Eighty-one thirty-five, IDA, 8135, 2120. You'll see specifically, do you usually go, Mr. Chairman, line by line, budget line? How do you?
You go down, and hit your highlights and anything that
Okay.
has major changes.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about, just in general, right, major changes or highlights for 2023 that you'll see throughout the budget are GA sewer district number 1, IDA 2120, sewer rents increasing of 9.75. The second one would be just, these are just highlights in general. We can discuss them further as we're going through. GB sewer district number 2, 8110 has administrative sewer rents of 9%, and GB sewer district number 2, 899 capital reserve real taxes is a 5% increase. I've also discussed with Al and others a creation under 899 under capital reserve, a capital improvement line for the treatment plant, and that would be things such as doors, sidings, roofing, lighting, and IT utility upgrades. So going through, starting with the IDA, GA 8135, you can see under 2120, time, labor, material, economics, the department is requesting an increase of from 42 to 90,000. That shows the 9.75 increase, where we have difference, or excuse me, the 82,000 amended budget on 22 to 23.
Yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, a question on that.
Yes,
What
Dan.
is the average expense per year to home for the sewer rent?
Well, there's no homes.
Oh, this is all in the
This is the
industrial park?
this is the industrial park.
Okay.
This is all commercial.
Yeah, then it's district, 2.
District 1.
Or district 1 is the
Supervisor.
So can you answer for District 2?
District 2 varies depending on the district versus in district, but I'll have to provide you a breakdown specifically of
Well,
what
I'm
those costs.
saying when you say
Because it's
9.1
based on meter usage, water
Yeah.
usage, right?
But see, my thought is if you base it on percent like you did, we have no idea what the impact is. If a person's average sewer rent in a home is $500 a year, when you've increased it by $50. And I'm just curious of what kind of numbers we're talking. I have no idea what.
Mr. Nolaz in the district, I think he can answer.
I can tell you that over the past 5 years, rates were artificially low, so that the users haven't seen probably a 28 to 30% increase over the past 5 years. But, my bill used to run about $79, and I think it was 185 in April. So it's now my usage is probably up too, but rate wise, but the district was artificially low, and that they were running a negative fund balance for what I.
Oh, yeah, well, it wasn't that, I'm just wondering what.
So if it's a $200 bill, you're talking
Right.
$20. I think that's what
A year.
you wanted.
But I mean,
Well,
what
throughout
about
the years, twice a year.
What, 85 or whatever, per what?
per 6 months?
Per 6 months.
Per se.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 billing cycles. Supervisor.
Okay.
You have one in October.
Well, that's what I was trying to get
You have one
to
in
find
April.
out what kind of an impact.
No, it's a good question, and I figured the best way to get the answer is to actually.
So there's a minimum charge to supervisor, right?
Yeah,
So
same
based on
water.
meter usage, right, up to 15,000, I think it is 15,000 gallons under that, it's a minimum charge of $50.
But you might have some people that pay very minimum, and you have people that pay higher because it's all based on usage.
It's all based on usage.
In district. It
And
could be
then
out of district.
has a whole.
Right.
And that's a whole separate out of district users are charged.
Well, that, I mean, it's not a big number, and that's what I was trying to get, as long as your numbers are small. 9% isn't a big number.
And they'll pay, the homeowner is gonna pay the usage twice a year, and it's gonna pay that for in January.
Correct.
So there's a levy in January and the 2 biannual usage.
So the 3 payments is what you're saying,
Yes, sir.
and that'll average about 200 on, well, 185 each time, so you're talking, or it might be over 300 then,
Well, the January bill is a different number.
no, 400. Okay, thank you.
That comes with your property tax?
That comes on your town account.
Yeah, that's what I,
Correct.
anybody else have something?
You'll also see an under 8135 4430 interdepartment. That's what the sewer district number 2 charges sewer district number 1, 10,000. That 10,000 is a number for operation and maintenance, preventive maintenance procedures that we have within the IDA park, vacuuming, cleaning, manhole replacements from an operational standpoint. So that is the charge. Any questions with the IDA? Okay, 8110 admin, our sewer rents increases. You'll see that number, the 9% increase in sewer rents. Again, time, labor, material, operation cost has an increase of 9%. It's a highlight. You'll also see the 10,000 again from interdepartment revenues as other. This is from sewer district number 1. So that,
How
yes,
do you determine that you need 9%? Is that just what kind of the inflation is?
So it balances both sides.
well, you're balancing
Just
your expenses,
Yeah.
your revenues. Just that cost today, right? Not carrying over out years.
And even with the 9%, they're still utilizing 230,000 of their fund balance. So
Not only that, if you look at the estimate or the actual what's in double it, doesn't reach last year.
But then Al said that 200, they're using 230,000 of fund balance on page 107. Is that a realistic number? Because the amended budget was almost 1.2 billion last year. Year before was last year a weird year that you went from 285,000 to 1.2 billion. Now you're back down. Why is that a big spike?
From
I'm sure there was something you had to do.
any
Something must have
earlier
broken.
on in the year, from an expense standpoint.
Well,
I'm aware of that. Were you say that again? November. But the only break that I had was on the force on Route 197. We're just going into construction now.
I'm wondering if you had to appropriate part of your fund balance and then you're going to pay it back.
No,
Is that-
we haven't.
What is
taken
that, a
any.
6-fold increase over the budget now? I just
6.
John,
The county loan sewer district money here. Am I correct?
Yes,
And where did that show payback?
That might be it.
That you won't see that in the budget. That comes on, it goes on as a due from, as a receivable for the county. And we expect that to be probably a week from today, that money repaid.
But that's not the expense, okay, that's not going to next year.
No, that's just it'll literally, just a week from today, we're expected to have the monies released from EFC. And that money will be paid in full.
That's a great question.
that was a,
It looks like there was,
that's the short fund, interfund borrowing.
Yeah.
For the county.
looks like there might have been 4 resolutions. I'd have to pull the actual resolutions, which I have to tell you what they were for, but it was, they hit it for 444, 227, 113, 115.
In what month was that?
They were June and August. So they must have been unexpected expenses that came up.
Yeah.
Now, remember too, that some of that's going to be, like with other departments, they have to roll forward any unspent grant money. So I imagine 1 or 2 of those, at least one of them is unspent grant money. That is a normal process for all our departments. But without having the resolutions in front of me, I'd have to see what they were.
Was some of that the engineering?
There was some, there was the 227 is the money that came out of long-term control plan. That wasn't going to be funded by EFC.
That's the
That was one of
aeration,
them.
Yep. Aeration
I think
valves,
The grant was 1. So 2 of the 4, I think, I remember, would have to look the resolutions up for.
change orders,
They could have been unexpected expenses.
more likely the change
Could have been the
orders,
emergency
the
stuff
68,000. You're talking about change orders within the capital project, yes.
And some of it might have been the emergency stuff you did on 197 to stop the bleeding.
Well, that would be, well, there's 2, right? You have
Right,
Bricky there out of Route 197. For the emergency bypass.
I could circle back with you, Mr. Happel.
but I'm sure the capital fund has its own fund.
So that,
That
it
would be
shows in this one, but they will all come out of capital. All of those capital, anything eligible for capital appropriation will come out of the capital.
What is their fund balance? Is there appropriate 230 out of 500, 2.5?
So the 230, Mr. Hicks, would have come out of their capital reserve, which is at 1.179. Their actual fund balance was
Control plans.
752. But
Yeah.
these large expenses would be out of the 1.179.
And then whenever that gets light, they just borrow more.
And I think that we're gonna be,
It's a bottomless.
we're getting a little bit lower on that number than Jason's comfortable with, but at least they had the reserve. It's better than not.
Well, the reserve is what's paying for the Route 197
Right.
project.
You said the fund balance is 1.7 million. That's before they take out 1.2 million, right?
Your total 1.7 and is rating off is the 600,000 that's allocated to FE1A.
So that's already out there. So it was
Okay.
1,179,000 in the capital reserve, Mr. Hack. And it was 752,000 in the unappropriated fund balance. Out of the 1.2, 285 was already appropriated. So, yeah, their capital reserve at the end of this year will be under $500,000. Only because they're going to be adding about 300,000 to it this year. But it's going to be lower than it's been in quite a long time. But these, when emergencies happen, they can borrow or they can hit the reserve, and they've chosen to hit the reserve. Right now, what they're levying exceeds what their debt service is, so as long as that's the case, they'll be able to replenish those reserve monies.
Barring any unforeseen emergencies, we have to reappropriate.
Barring any unforeseen emergencies.
Correct.
in this emergency, you really have to take care of it at the time. It's not what you put off.
Dan.
This is always asked every year about this time. And how do we compare to other local sewer districts as far as our rates are? And we've always been at or below, like the Warren County sewer districts up there. I know that we always compare ourselves to Glens Falls. And are we still in that same range? And secondly, when we get done with all the upgrades, I know you're gonna have long-term debt you're gonna switch things over to. But you're gonna have to increase sewer rates then to cover all this improvement. Are we still gonna be in line with?
A target service charge per resident or commercial
Yeah.
unit across the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, Supervisor, in terms of, you know, because all these communities, surrounding communities, it's extremely old infrastructure. And you're facing daily operational issues and costs. So we're no different than a Glens Falls to a Saratoga Springs. It's consistently repair and maintenance of the infrastructure. There's always going to be a heavy lift, heavy cost. And for an average, that's just based on household income, population for a target. But it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's according to who updates at the time. If you're the one that just did the $10 million update or 20
How
or
much
100
grant
million,
you
right?
have, or
And so you're gonna have to raise your rates to meet that debt service.
No.
And then the other, so you're maybe go above another group that does it 2 years later, then they have to raise, so you're going like this.
So just remember, the user rates don't support that service, they only support
Right.
operations.
Operations.
The room supports the debt service.
service.
And right now, you're levying 559,000, and the debt service is only 218. So there's room there for the foreseeable long-term control plan borrowing. It will be supported by the current levy.
Thank you.
So if he keeps trucking along with a 2 or 3% each year, the debt service is able to keep pace with what he's already levying. It's the operational side that maybe is the more, it's not the debt service that should be the warning, it should be the operational side.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, under capital reserve, you'll see 899-1003 real taxes county. That shows this includes a 5% increase. Have a lower capital reserve. 550.
Back you up a little bit, you skipped over our post. Can you tell me what interdepartmental revenues compost facility is? How do you get inter-revenue or interdepartmental revenue on the facility?
Because the compost has a revenue source, right? The finished compost.
But that's the lines up above, minor sales of compost.
That's so sewer district and Lake George share the cost of the facility. So
Okay,
the revenue that you're seeing in the compost department is paid by the operations.
okay,
So sewer district pays itself
we're gonna charge them that much more than last year from 73,000 to 130.
because we went from 3 participants to 2, so their share of it is higher.
But the net dollars is still the amount, same, right?
Right, but it's only shared by 2 entities instead of 3, so our share of it went up.
Oh, our share.
Meaning our sewer district share
Okay,
went up because there's only 2 participants instead of 3.
okay, thank you.
Which is Lake George in the sewer district.
Stay tuned because you're looking at waste.
That's going to change because of the flood. Right, Mr. Chairman, that
Mr. F, if you go to Department 8110-4430, you'll see an expense line for 209,000. That represents the money that they have to pay the compost facility and the money they pay the county for collecting their user fees. So I charge them $50,000 a year to collect their April and October bills. And that's in that 209,000 hour.
8110, 4430.
Yes, sir.
8110,
What page?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Towards the top.
8130.
8110 is ready expenses. And that's where they pay the compost facility and they pay the county. And right now we're charging just for our collection services. And we charge 50,000.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Supervisor. What page? 109. 109. So we're talking about the increase of 5%, including the capital reserve and ad alarm. Page 110.
Before you skip on.
Yep.
Permit fees out of district, on page 109.
Mhm.
License and permit totals, this year you have 0. 2022 amended was 6,300. Should you be anticipating some revenue there, or is that not going to be?
I don't anticipate any permit fees out of district for District 2, right?
That's just like a year by year
Correct.
thing.
No anticipation. One 10. Looking at this too in admin. This does not include the staffing pattern or projections for 2023. In my case, deputy director, operator trainees that we included, or the interns as known in earnings. But I also noted this morning too that no coverage in 8110, 122 for administrative staff attending the BOC meeting, which is an hour, typically, an hour overtime for the administrative assistant to prepare the meeting minutes, agendas for that meeting. For the BOC. So looking at just that rate of pay times 12, it's right around $300. And I noticed it shouldn't be at 1.5, it should be at 300. Regular overtime, 1.0 should be at $300 allocation. And I'm not sure why $200 was in there for 1.5, because it's not done on the weekend, it's always on Monday.
Jason, is that position of 35 or 40 hours?
It's a 40-hour.
And there won't be a 122. You'll never have a 122 on a 40-hour.
Okay. So that's why you're seeing 0.
122 is only for the first 5 hours between 35 and 40.
Okay, so $200 is not going to cover my cost
Got it.
to have personnel there at.
So what about that 2 to 5 then?
He's over 5 for this year.
You're over 5.
Got it.
So
it'd be-
$600
So
would
you
be
went into 123 now, whatever.
correct. If Mr. Chairman, we can do that.
600 is fine.
I'm at
6, we're right there, so 600. Continuing on page 110, I also have a concern with postage, right? Postage at $10,000. The reason that we budgeted it was our share of 60 cents, but talking to Al, we're to get a bulk rate. That's really any legal notices that we're preparing or billings, cost share, but that's a bulk rate. Our number will be around that $8,000, $68,000 in cost before the end of the year. So that's why you see a postage dollar amount of 10,000.
Should it be 8,000?
Should be 9,600 to absorb the 400. You just To make it easy, that's what I'm thinking. Will that work for you? If we take it down for the other one, for it, saves you a lot of manipulating. I'll send them
60
to
cents a
manipulate.
stand. That's,
Yeah.
Where Paul created it, yeah.
Before we switch the page, this is probably a question.
Mhm.
Unemployed or employee benefits, hospital, medical, 37,000. Why is it so much more? Do they have like family members, or they used to maybe have a single or something? Is they?
It would be based on their current census, so they could possibly have more family plans than the average bear. It's possible.
More than like 2 years ago, because it's.
Yeah, because if you have turnover.
Well, backfilling positions, new positions, that are younger personnel that are coming in, young families.
Plus, you also have a
Family
budget for the
plan.
future year in case you have singles that leave and families come in, right? Is that why that's that much higher?
That's not a number that,
So basically what the budget officer does is he looks at what's needed in total for next year. And then takes the current census and then gets an allocation that way. And I don't remember your percentage, Brian, it was 3 or 5, something. Yeah, when you agree with that. Anticipated increase on that.
I'm doing those to town, too. Because you know, it's gonna be a single family and you haven't got room to budget everybody in the family plan, so you're just really guessing at the town level. That's a fun one to do.
The good news is countywide, we have budgeted what the maximum exposure to the county is. So even if it's not allocated 1,000% correct, the total countywide budget will support the maximum amount will be contributed.
And then the question would be, yes, the sewer district pays their share.
Yes, whatever it is.
Because how you just said that, the question is coming.
Regardless of budget, actual will be actual.
Do we have any other questions for sewer districts?
Yes.
so are we on page 111? Al talked about that 209 interdepartment 724 compost revenue. And that number, Al, is 50,000, right, that we pay your office?
50,000 to the county. And
County,
the other is
50,000 to the county,
the other is compost.
and the other is the compost. That's what I have.
Yeah.
Correct. Our regular earnings under 8120, personnel changes filled, not filled. You can see a difference from 2 amended 294 to 255. The OT and overtime. I expect supervisors that the on-call usage will come down. We budgeted 35,000. I don't expect to use that. But it's an unknown. It's an unknown, but the changes that I've implemented over the last month.
There's 2 different lines on call.
On call is only 9,600.
Yes, the on-call is 9,600 and then overtime with OT. I expect the on-call will remain, right? That's after hours, anytime after 3:30 p.m. And then on weekends. So
that becomes a burden to the district.
Correct.
In an effort to make people answer the phone when it rings, there's policies in our handbook that have a 2-hour minimum. So even if you're called in for 15 minutes, you're going to get 2 hours worth of pay. And that's 2 hours on top of the 40 you're already working. So that 15-minute call then actually costs the district time and a half on 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it adds up.
Did you have a question, Dana? That
No, that was, I had marked my page previous to Al explaining the concept.
Move
move along. Electric. This is another concern of mine. We're currently paying roughly 6 cents a kilowatt hour I just signed a 2-year contract at 12 cents a kilowatt, so we've doubled. This budget does not represent that signed contract and change, 12 cents
When does it start?
first year.
At 84.
So this is what I'm looking at for numbers, right?
Yeah, it won't be that much because the delivery stays the same. That's the mistake.
So the electric
Already.
would go up. So I would like to add 18,000. 18 to the 42. Page 113, electric. I'm comfortable adding 40 to 120.
Adding 40 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And compost at 85 is okay.
Another 58,000 of $1.
What about the line above that 80,000? Equipment non-asset 5,000.
Supervisor, what page?
On page 113, you were talking about the electric, the line right above the electric. Equipment non-asset 5,000. Historically, it's been less than 1,000.
Well, that's equipment and nonsense. That could be anything from piping material and any cost threshold. So any approval is the 4135. There's a split that we did 5,000 and 4035 and there's the other 0.2285. You see the split? Because I think at one time, supervisor, they had 8,000 under the adopted. Can you see that? Under supply, small tool, 0.2285.
I'm looking at the actual. Okay.
So I split them. So we had zeroed out at point.
We changed the fixed asset policy.
Yeah, the fixed asset policy from
The threshold.
0.4035.
So basically, you went 8,000 to 10,000.
Correct. 5,000 in each budget line.
Generator supply.
You got the tracks.
Same.
Yeah.
You got a better rate by quarter than we did.
On the electric, is there any advantage for us to pool the county with the sewer district when they start to do a contract? Because then it's a bigger sale. I mean, for the county to take advantage or the sewer district to work together on that?
I think they got a better rate than we did. Didn't they?
They actually got higher.
Yeah, we're 0.127.
Yeah, it's almost 13.
But again, and
12.79 cents.
now how long?
12 and a quarter.
What are the
2
terms? So 2 years. So
And that's what you did.
my logic here, supervisors, is within 2 years, the system at the plant, the cogen, the new boiler, and all the high performance upgrades that we are doing, when that cogen is online, I'm expecting that I will have production around 60% of our usage.
Nice.
Makes your payback look better with that number.
Now, that's something we're expecting, but that's why I didn't want to go out any longer than the 2 years, because my window of construction is about 2 years. And where I'll be online, where the cogen.
I think Sue had a question before I do.
I'm just on the education, is that the actual amounts that were for 2021 and 22? Is that due to COVID and we have 8,000 this year?
Correct, that's due to COVID and then new trainees and certifications and education requirements.
So the 8,000 reflects more of an actual amount that you expect to use this year, rather than what we've had in the
Yes.
last 3 years.
If I'm hearing the question correctly.
Yes, I think Dean's question, I don't think really got answered, because we said that we paid less than what he did, and he asked about the two of us merging together for rates.
Well, it turned out they got higher. So yeah, it's still
But
still an
they merged with us,
opportunity,
and he did
right?
less, right? I think that's what the question was. I think that's what he was trying to ask. I don't know what the answer, what was our rate, Brian?
That, I don't know if we can merge, but it's worth a try, or at least looking at, but what is your total kilowatts?
For usage,
Right there.
right here, 2.1.
We'll have to answer the question. Because we work with the same guy.
It's always been a, Mr. Chairman, I think a separate contract, correct, between
It
the
is.
sewer district and the county.
Yeah, but I know Dean asked a question, could it be?
We don't know.
More cost.
We'll have to ask. That's a good question. I mean, especially if it saves us money. Yeah, it might save you money too.
It'd be nice if we could do that.
Yeah.
Two good questions. No pressure on.
CBW is coming.
Still on 113, you'll see testing that I have in there. This is where, due to the implementation of the long-term control plan, plus the renewal of the state pollution discharge elimination permit itself, will require additional testing. These testing are very, when you do wet testing, toxicity testing, acute testing, chronic testing, one sample, one testing is up to $5,000. So in this budget is 25,000, which should cover any cost that we may have as we build in the new requirements of the permit. But that's all testing. And it's very, very expensive, but it is a part of it. It's a requirement of the permit.
Are there many options out there for testing facilities?
3 or 4 labs, certified labs. Our lab at the plant is not certified to meet those.
I would just say, are the prices comparable between?
Yes. Yes.
On the testing, it sounds like we're getting it out there now with sewer systems testing, and is that money coming from another source, or is it?
For the COVID testing, that's being actually a good question because that's being handled out of Syracuse University, and there's no cost to the district or the county for that service. So every month through our discharge monitoring reporting, a sample is taken at the plant, and then that's processed and picked up with Syracuse's contract lab, and they provide us the results. So I see every month where our COVID levels are, which is shared with our local county health department, and myself and others, DEC, to see the trends and monthly trends of where the impacts are.
Are they doing polio and like TB too?
No, just COVID, just COVID. And I see another great question, that's going to expand to other pharmaceuticals.
Are there other elements that you're testing and finding that we should be concerned with?
Not at this time, but I see the regulatory agencies or others moving in that direction. You know, from a policing standpoint, that may come at some point in time where you're looking at barbiturates or any other that you may want to see. The waste stream.
The line above testing, this local fees, 15,000. Is that 15,000 just a place marker that gets in there every year? Because if you see the expenses are much less.
Yeah, that is something that has just been, you know, you can see 20,000 increase up to 5, right? So from the amended and our disposal fees, depending on, and this is under 8130, any
No,
discharge, is that what you're?
no, I'm
Supervisor?
Well, no, 8131, am I on the wrong page? I'm on page 114.
Oh, 114.
I'm on the wrong
You're
page.
explaining,
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You're trying to hurry it along.
Same.
You're trying to
I'm
hurry it
sorry.
along. I understand.
All of you supplies, it's all the same thing.
I know.
All right, sorry.
So sorry, Supervisor.
No, I-
So what's the question again?
I'll wait till you get to that.
Oh, I think he's there now.
Oh, we're there.
Okay.
114.
Yeah, 114, down at the bottom, disposal fees. It looks like 15,000 is not too
15,000.
much of an expense if you look at historically.
1888 is what we have in actual.
But if you look at the 2021 actual 4,000, just looks like 15,000, it's just automatically every year 15, 15, 15. And I think you could probably save some expense money there.
Let me look into that, Supervisor.
The good news, if they budget 15 and they don't need it, they'll use less of that $230,000 of fund balance. So,
But they're still doing a 9% increase in the rate.
but they would still have to do the 9% even if that line went to zero.
And they're gonna have to go to 20% once that fund balance.
He'd have to cut 230,000 out of his budget before
Right.
he could drop the rate.
Replenishing.
Yeah, you gotta keep replenishing. So like when you got 58,000 just in electric
I don't-
increase. No, you have 58,000 just in electric increase.
So then you put the increase in electric, not in disposal.
And right, so he could back that off a certain amount, but it's still gonna, eventually it uses your fund balance.
And a supervisor, that it would be possible, knowing that if something happened, he would have to come back to his commission and to you to tap his fund balance. So yes, you're correct. That is another way to do it.
But there's also a method that a little fat, and lots of lines to get to. But
Mhm.
I don't agree with that. If your disposal fees are not $15,000, maybe they're 2,500, then that should be the budgeted number. And if you need more money somewhere else, put more money somewhere else. You don't build contingencies into all these little lines.
Yes, you could do that.
That's the honest way.
Be sure that you don't know exactly what the disposal fee is gonna be.
That's what's on there. 15.
Right.
How
The
dare you.
disposal fees change, and so you
Year
don't
to
know
year.
you don't know how much you're gonna be disposing and what the fee's gonna be, so it's a plan, it's a guess. No, that's exactly the way it is. The whole budget is a plan. You're trying to make it fit.
Yeah, look at,
Dan, let's take 10 grand out of there, move it up to electric, and it's closer, it'll look better, and it's more accurate, but it doesn't change anything. That's my point.
No, and if he
Still
has,
have the increase.
and if the disposal fees come down or come out at 20,000, he's gotta come back for more no matter what. That's the way it is.
well, then, this whole thing,
No, it's a plan.
Exercise and utility.
it's a planned champ. Champion.
Champlain.
Champion.
It's in Michael's area.
Very good question, Supervisor.
It doesn't matter the question because the answer is always going to be. Doesn't matter. Right? It could be, you don't know what the answer is. It could be 3,000 or it could be 15,000. So it doesn't really into, so these questions don't matter. Right?
Well, and I can make a comment on this. That I don't want to discourage him because it's going to make a big difference when you get into public works. Because that's funded by taxpayers, which we all represent. This is funded by sewer district users.
Taxpayers.
Right, no.
The taxpayers.
Now, you cut me off again, Brian. I can never make a point. So you scramble it all up. And if you could just be quiet while I spoke for a minute, I could make.
Go ahead, calm down.
Go ahead, Ariel.
Is that the sewer district has a board of directors that govern that. And that's all internal. I want you to keep doing it because the next round in this next session is going to be impacting all of us directly. So keep up the good work.
Doesn't matter, Dan.
It does.
Okay, we'll see.
Been under the last page.
No,
Right
there's one
Do we-
taxpayer.
do we want
I have
to?
no further comments.
We don't want
I don't think
to.
we want to be a taxpayer, we're not a ratepayer. We don't want to be a ratepayer and
We want to do.
We can reduce that, but we can move that to what our need was in electric.
Just haven't fired what it is.
That's all.
You don't have to understand.
Oh, he was getting discouraged.
Supervisors asking.
We got about 7 different conversations going on here.
Okay, so you're saying the 8,500 for electric.
I'm comfortable with in terms of our current pricing, right? Question from the supervisors, instead of carrying over 15, whenever we can move to electric in another sub-department, say 5,000, right? To
Okay.
go to add 5,000 underneath.
And you want to put 5,000 up to the electric.
So instead of 18 in operations, you would do 13. Oh, no, it'd be to, look at,
So you're gonna move the difference from proposal fees up to cover your electric. And that's
that same sub-department, you can't move it
To another
different
department,
sub-department.
right? Well, you're probably gonna need it in that department. Or some of it.
So you're talking about you want to move it up to electric in compost. So you want to take the 8,500 of the compost electric and increase that.
Increase it by 5 and reduce the other by 5.
That's what I suggested.
10,000 disposal fees is even too much, but okay, I'll take a minor. Take 3 or 8.
I thought it was
It doesn't matter, Dave.
We're just doing the same.
Well, we look back to the actuals though, from 20 to 21, and 5 times,
It just doesn't matter people.
right?
So we can't move compost over to compost.
Just doesn't matter.
If you look at the actuals, it went up 5 times from 20 to 21. So I don't know how, that's quite a difference in a target.
Which line are you talking
The
about?
very one you were talking about.
The disposal fee?
Yeah, it was 957, that went to 4,500.
Wait a minute.
Right, but so then you would make that maybe 5. I'm ready.
Okay, is there any more questions on sewer? Go ahead. Josh.
Testing, we're testing 2 different things here.
Supervisor says again.
You have testing here in 4590, and we go back.
One's compost testing and one's sewage testing, right?
Correct. There's two
Compost
tests.
fails, you can't sell it.
So if I'll call for those annual quarterly testings have to be EPA standards. Testing.
Anything else for Jason?
Brian, can I just clarify, did you just decide, or Jason decide to move disposal money and compost
To electric and compost.
to electric and compost?
Yep, 5 and 5.
I thought he said the 8,500 in compost was
Was sufficient, but again, with electric usage, right, we know we're set for the next 2 years, but supervisor's concern is that we're just continuing the budget, right, year after year, we're not utilizing funds. I'm trying to look at one item.
But if you move it up to electric, you're doing the same thing, because if you look at electric, that's way over funded also.
Correct.
just rearranging the chairs on the deck. We're not-
Yes, that's all we're doing.
Yes, so why don't you just,
Assuming like a non-asset.
why don't you eliminate $5,000?
So if you took 5,000 off, you would reduce the revenue to compost by 5,000, which would in turn reduce the contribution.
Of amounts.
Right.
The
So
fund balance.
compost has to stay independent of the other lines. So if you reduce the expense of compost, the benefit to that is it reduces the county sewer district's contribution to compost. That's where you save the,
So it'd be a $5,000.
so there, it's a stranger path, but it does give relief to
Just the same.
their portion of the compost. I can work with the budget, I'll start with that. If that's the desire. If the desire is to drop, they cut the disposal by 5,000, I'll work with budget, I'll start how that.
That's my desire.
Trend shows where
Right.
we were.
Prior to that, That's
prior
what I
to
don't know
5
either.
years. You know, do we have a trend for 5 years on that? Outlook of what was,
We can go back to the
budgeted.
world till what year?
I want to be careful saying, yes, we're gonna -5, but then,
If it tests good, there should be no disposal fees, because disposal fees is if it fails the coliform, salmonella, you got to dispose of.
Boy, we had a couple
correct,
years
or
of
no,
that.
not necessarily, I mean, so if it's a,
Money for disposal. a
We
couple of
paid
years
big
ago.
for
That's what I'm
that.
saying over here. The compost fails and we pay big money for
Well,
disposal.
But if it tests well, you have people that are better trained there, it is less.
All kinds of.
we're
words
meeting
with
all parameters.
They-
But you could have a failure at any time. It's
Well,
not out of the,
Yeah, you just brought that nightmares.
It was every. It was failing.
was that the $500,000?
That was something
That was
crazy.
like that huge pile of failed stuff.
There's nothing like that out there today.
Jason, do you have any staffing changes you're looking at?
Mr. Chairman, I have
5-year track.
grade 110. I want to maintain the capital. These are the trends.
Yeah, it was 12.7.
What was our total usage?
Was your actual?
That was an actual, okay, so
So that's what it stems from, is the 19 actual.
what was disposal, what wasn't, what was testing, what we could recycle testing, so. Can we look at it, we have time to
Yeah.
discuss,
Yeah, I'll bring it back to the town. Yeah.
thank you. 8110, new staffing, again, requesting deputy director for 1 year. 120, no change. There's just title changes. And for 8130, which is operations, I have 2 operator trainees and 2 interns, summer interns that I would like to add.
What's the cost for those?
For the operator trainee would be non-union, so it'd be next year. Their salary rates,
So the
Brian was
floor
asking.
is about. 120.
Yeah, they have 100,000, 120,000 difference. So the operator trainees, it was asked the question of what their salary would be. It would be 49,150.
So those are 2 upgrades, Jason? They're not new
Yes.
position, okay.
They're not new position, it would just be, currently one is in a labor title, right, that's going through the qualifications, and the other one is a title that's a sewer maintenance worker. It's going through the training classes now to become an operator trainee.
So I have that's about $12,000 for those increases
For each one of them or?
together. Total,
For those 2 trainees?
yes.
The other ones are 10,000 apiece.
Yeah, the interns,
Yes.
and that's using whatever the labor rate is for 2023. Which we have here, which is. So that's $19, I think, $19.15.
Equal to what labor, to what a
Labor.
laborer is on the title number.
And again, I don't know what the county's policy on that. Interns, are they traditionally paid a laborer's rate or what have you? I don't know. the answer to that.
So if they're working labor job duties, they're paid labor.
And in this case, they're gonna be doing GPS coordination, elevations, inverts, and things that I'll be on the field with that.
But they're
Manhole
but they're getting
inspection,
college
they're
credit
getting,
for it.
yeah, experience, correct.
See, this is a discussion we had earlier in the year, whether the interns could get paid.
They need to be. And having Dave have to work on what grade she thinks those duties fall. That's the rate that they would have to be paid.
That'll be discussed at the personnel meeting in October.
Okay,
So you want asking for deputy and
correct. And that would be just for 1 year. You had the supervisors that provided a deputy last year at a term, no more than 1 year, at a max salary of 35,000.
And that is in this year's budget or not in this year?
It's not in this year's budget.
So you want that same amount back?
Yes, 35,000 or more.
any more questions for Jason?
We're still, he's not gonna go away now, is he?
You got questions?
Page 115.
I'm here.
Capital Reserve, 8999. You're gonna buy an electric vehicle truck. That what EV operates?
Yes.
So,
I'm budgeting it, doesn't mean necessarily I'm gonna buy it.
all right, so the electric rate has doubled. All supply and demand, you should not increase demand if the cost of supply increases. Right?
Third of gas. Yeah.
So can you even, I don't even think you can buy an electric truck for 42,000.
Yes, that was the estimates that we received through Ford.
But now you're gonna be paying your double electric rate to charge this thing.
Which is still a third of the price. Yes.
And the price of gas is coming down, price of electricity is going up. Just as, it's illogical to buy an electric vehicle when the cost of electricity is going up, you're increasing demand for electricity.
240 volt charging operation.
No, and that's something that we
You
need to
better put some
look at.
construction money in there then.
There's money there, but there's also grant components that provide you charging stations, up to 90% or 100%. So it's all dependent. And this was something when I was looking at investigating the budget, just as with other equipment, pulling this together to provide estimates, right? We know a gasoline truck, we can 30 to 40, right? Nothing elaborate. It's just an operational truck. Look at what that cost would be compared to an EV, right? The EV, we're around that 35, EV's at 42, okay?
A truck, a truck.
Yes.
What's the name?
Ford.
Ranges now.
Yeah, it's a small, yeah, it's not.
Here's a crazy question.
Mhm.
Could be done, right? You have a cogen, methane, right?
Mhm.
Natural gas is mostly methane. Could you compress that and run that truck off of the methane from your plant? People in Florida have these
Utilizing
big
methane
compressors.
gas compressions. Potentially, yes.
You could fuel it for nothing,
Correct.
but it had to be a methane truck, not a, or a
It's
natural
like-
gas truck.
I'm trying to look at dioxide too, right? And gas, the breakdown checklist from that can be sold. But there's more science that I need in what we're generating. We're gonna have these answers within 2 years. There's a lot of different avenues that you're describing.
Which vehicle? You said electric vehicle.
Right.
Other than said purchasing. Like most vehicles. In the winter time, that could be out, so you run a water main break, and that vehicle could be out sitting there 9 hours running with the lights flashing.
That is not a collection utility vehicle, that, not from in the field vehicle, that's just for our use operations. Right, just for admin, right, going to the lab, going to the hardware, or me going to the job site, inspecting it. That's not
I just wonder how it rolled up, sitting there running for a year.
that's the concern with a lot of my staff and collections, the utility support, craning. It's not gonna function as that, it's more of, and me looking at this more too, is it doesn't need to be a truck, but I wanted to come up with budgets that it could be a car. I don't
need a sheriff car. Or a sheriff car like the code enforcement have.
We could pay double to maintain fuel.
So, yeah.
No,
Maintain the car, don't go
no,
buy a new
that's
one all the
ordinance.
time.
We don't pay for that.
Don't change the tires, buy a new car.
You can buy a plug-in EV for $42,000 that would get 50 miles to a charge, and you run basically electric the whole time with a backup.
Many options.
As long as you drive less than 50 miles a day. I would think the sewer district isn't that big, right?
So do
No,
you need a truck
less than
that's just gonna be admin driving around? Maybe a truck.
It doesn't necessarily
You
need
just
to be a
said that.
truck.
That's what
But you never know when you gotta throw something in the back, take it to.
Cones or whatever I need. It's, again, it's a
So the
light
sewer
duty
district, I'm
truck.
not throwing in the back seat of my vehicle, it's for the sewer district.
I give you credit for looking at the option, Jason, and for thinking about getting a light duty truck and a small truck and not. I did a lot of good work on it, so.
It's just a budget.
I'm gonna
plug in Prius to get 170 miles down.
It's got easy.
Al, you have a question?
Jason, just make sure that you and Brian and your commissioners are off the same page, because the electric increase and the staff increase is around 97,000. Just make sure that all the players are comfortable with another 97 on top of it.
Which again, supervisors, your knowledge, this budget has been presented to POC. Accepted, so. Al, I don't, I wanted to talk about the creation of and I discussed this with the supervisors or the commissioners on the capital improvement budget line GB 899. And the estimated 350,000 from that, from the capital reserve, separate reserve. I don't know how to describe it, budget line under capital reserve. So that would provide, I've done a lot of work in terms of getting estimates for upgrades at the plant besides the capital budget, right? Roofs, doors, windows, IT utility upgrades, so communication between buildings, which is greatly needed. And got estimates for all that work and just working with Al's office, what is the best approach on putting that within my budget and being able to use that source or that line item for the, we're not necessarily going to do that work, all that work within 1 year. We may do doors 1 year, we may do windows the following year, and siding the next. So I wanted to talk to Al a little bit about that with the committee members and how I vision that to the Board of Commissioners and how we'll move forward with it.
So the best plan that we came up with, it would look a lot like the capital project that you all have set up for your 5-year capital plan. There would be a new capital project. There would be a capital plan, capital project specific to the sewer district. And Jason would take the difference between his ad valorem and his debt service each year. Whatever that gap is, that amount would actually be funded out of the project. And then he would have, it would operate a lot like a capital reserve does, but it would be something that as a capital project would be a rolling number. And it would allocate it as needed, like you do with your 5-year capital plan, capital project. It would look a lot like what we're doing at the county level. He would mirror that same philosophy and same mechanism for the sewer district, but keeping it, rather than rolling it into our 5-year capital plan and making it muddier, keep creating a new capital project that was specific to the sewer district. And they would just continue to fund that the way that we're funding ours. And he would use that for unexpected capital purchases, improvements to roofs and windows and doors. That's the best solution that I think would serve them well. And I actually recommended that he come to you this year and not make it part of the 2023 budget. Why not start? You have current needs and you have a current gap in the amount that you raise in taxes. So why not establish it now, fund it now? And as he goes up a bit, except for the windows in the spring, everything's in place for him already. So that would be my recommendation if the board was willing to entertain that. And that doesn't need action today, but you'll hear about that again.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if we needed action.
You're welcome to, but if you wanted to wait, have a more in-depth conversation at the October meeting, that's fine. That's just my recommendation to Jason.
Alan, where is the commissioner stand on this?
They've approved that discussion. We would like to see that move forward. But it was a discussion that I wanted to have. So that's just here.
How would the motion go out?
So it would be a motion to create a capital project for the sewer district capital plan. This is the bottom line motion that you.
Just to set up the capital.
Just to set the capital project.
Just to set up the capital reserve.
Cassie made the motion. Is there a second? Who seconded? Being seconded. Discussion?
We fund it.
We're gonna fund this, if you,
And we've always had one that never funded it. It doesn't work if you don't fund it.
the capital project that we're creating, we're gonna start the funding with this year's capital. So whatever his debt service was this year, the difference between that and what he levied, that was gonna be the initial funding. So we'll start this year, and that's how we'll work forward as well. Each year, that gap between the levy and the debt service will be the contribution. And you can actually see that going
forward or going lower. Or increasing or decreasing as you go along.
So it would decrease if the borrowing goes up, but the commission could, as it is a line item in the budget, the commissioners and Jason could recommend a larger dollar amount. So like this year, if you look at your 2023 budget request, you'll see a miscellaneous reserve contribution of 260,000. That's what would go in next year. It's about that same number this year. So the debt service goes up, that number is sustainable. If the gap gets closer, the commissioners could vote to increase that money through regular operation this year. They could always add to.
Any other discussion?
Doesn't.
All in favor, aye? Opposed? You all set, Jason, or
Yes, I'll set.
everybody? You got a question? Okay, John?
Did I hear Jason say that the other boards already approved all this?
Correct. Board of Commissioners? Correct. Everything I presented you today has been reviewed, approved by the PCC.
We're glad you asked the question. We're gonna get out of the sewer district. Let the board of commissioners take care of it all.
Anything else for Jason?
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
We own it.
Yep. I don't have no sewer last time.
It was
Why
similar
don't
to
you
tax
buy
cap,
the
right?
mark for charge that
It
car?
affects our tax cap or
58
something
minutes.
something else too, right? Just Larry.
You think?
Whatever he let you out.
Autonomous electric cars. We don't even need drivers. They just go.
In the ditch in our village, one, leave it electric water.
You don't have your head.
Let me hear it. First page.
What would the increase over last year? You factored in some of the increase, right?
Yeah,
One,
the growth. Yeah.
okay.
Before we started.
Well, it made no difference. That number is 1% higher than it is last year. Nothing to do with where we are. now.
Right.
You're talking about total budget. We've
Yes,
amended.
I'm just.
We're talking about the request.
He used the number.
We've amended.
We haven't touched the levy at all.
Not yet.
No, we have to get the fund balance down
I'm
first.
just, that's not what I'm talking about. He set a bar for increasing taxes in the budget.
Thanks, Jason.
And then he balanced it with fund balance. I just want to know what the bar was.
It's not how we're affording this, like a person already pressed not to do it, then,
I'm just trying to understand the cover page. That tells you what the other cover page.
It was another good question, Dan.
Dave,
You reach your quota there.
Deb, do you want to take care of the other business before we start in the budget?
You might want to.
Because we're gonna pour some money into
Very good
this,
question.
into the budget, right?
So, I just passed out the grant MOAs between Washington County Culver and the towns to Granville, Hartford, and Jackson. if you could sign it and give it back to me, I gave you a copy of it as well. I just thought. Just so- Special. Then, oh, I sent the auction list out, so can we declare these as surplus so we can send them to auction?
Moved by Dave, second by Cassie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And our award-winning County Route 113 project has come to a close. So Al has told me that we have $374,891.87 to go back to the D account. Yeah, thanks, Al.
We got your committee here, so just moving it to finance for the amendment, or?
You have to move to finance and then we have to approve it.
I'll move it twice.
I'll second twice.
Okay. Moved it to finance, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Uh-huh.
Finance on the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
You got Cassie and Dave again?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved.
And Deb does need some of the credit for that because she worked with DOT on getting our local share to zero. That's why so much money's coming. On the construction phase, it was 80-20 state, federal, no local.
Good job.
Anything else before we dive in the budget?
No, not really. I got an email last minute from somebody in a paint company wanting to do a free paint collection thing at our county before the second week in November. So if that all hashes out, should I just go back to, I just haven't looked into it yet because I just got it. So should I bring that to them? Oh, I don't know if it's gonna cost us anything. It doesn't sound like it. Should I bring that to finance, ask if we can go forward with it? Because November, second week in November, I don't know. It's just paint, but it would be a step in the right direction. Or should I just go forward with it? It doesn't cost us.
Dana
I
shaking
think
his head, yeah.
that, yeah, I think the details probably should come to somebody, but if it doesn't involve money, it really shouldn't be a finance. But I would, I would think.
All right, so I'll bring it back. Okay, I'll bring that to finance.
Oh, yeah, move it, I guess, right?
Somebody's gotta hear it.
I need a
Move it to
second,
finance.
Kathy. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
And that's all I got.
Okay.
So on the budget. So the first part of the budget is in the A line.
Page 38. no.
So you have a copy of the travel plan. It's really not much different than anything that has been done in the past. The New York State Association of Counties for the Transportation Committee is added now, so. Did anybody have any questions about the A budget?
I just. I see how the point one to go up. Why under employee benefits and medical and hospital are we going down? Is there a change in the mix?
I have no idea what those.
Because we're at $11,000 now, so we should probably go over 16 and 23 what we budgeted last year, which seems to be a little more accurate. It's kind of hard to bring when point ones go up, when medical would go down.
Again, the countywide distribution was based on the census, and she said it personnel turnover, the census was.
Okay, so the grand number which we used to get is accurate. Now you're breaking down all the different ones and
Which is
the compilation, but
best guess based on the census.
makes sense.
And she's got a lot of new faces, so the census could have absolutely.
Any other question on the A?
Yes, the overtime looks so high.
It's hard.
The overtime.
What page is that?
Page
Page 38. Overtime. I don't know.
I'm sorry, never mind.
Zero.
I thought you were being funny.
The actual finisher is negative. You want a negative next year.
I dropped down one page. I had a big one over there. So, never mind.
I have a hard enough time keeping track.
I got so burned out of sewer.
You would like me to add overtime.
You got Tom
to my
Wilson?
line.
Yeah, I got counted.
I was waiting for everybody to laugh.
Yeah, that's it. It was a joke.
The next one is, well, if there are any more questions. The next one is page 86 for the solid waste. We still have to do testing. And that reflects our contract for the 21, 22, 23 years. with renewal in 24. I'm not sure when it closes. I think it's in 28, but we'll know that when we do our next contract.
How many test sites do you have?
We have
Ten.
2 that we have to test. We have in Easton and Fort Ann.
Was based on how many wells to test, right? Around that.
I can get out the
All
contract.
right, never mind.
This thing kind of runs itself, like we are doing what he wants us to do. and-
Yeah, I just thought, it looked like my per well rate was lower than what this was. I don't believe I could remember exactly how many wells.
This was sent out as RFP back in 20, for the 21, 22, 23. So we didn't do it by wells, though, I can tell you that. We did it by,
The RFP.
When we changed ours, it was by what they tested for after
Yeah.
a certain amount of time. They
How many
changed
times they
what,
test the
How
cats?
many times and I think you also get to check some of the stuff.
DEC allowed us to test fewer times, so it dropped the
We are,
price.
So we got 8 more years after this year.
Was the RFP 14,500?
yes. Between the landfill testing and the, and somebody to break it up, it's 2 different costs. So the RFP itself was not 14,500. One of them was, I think, $2,000, and the rest was 12,500, as I recall. The testing is 12,500. Yeah,
All right.
no, any more questions on solid waste? We're gonna take it back over. Next up is carpool. On page 89 it starts. Just some highlights on carpool is sale of equipment has raised. I think we can get, we're retiring the new cars that we placed with the grant, so we should be able to meet this revenue goal. The interdepartmental revenues, carpool and fleet car on the very bottom. That has been increased to go from a 45-cent per mile charge to a 60-cent per mile charge.
That's a question about the mileage charge. Why don't we go with the IRS business rate? Because we need 60 cents to make it work. The IRS rate is what, 58 cents or something?
50, well, they said yesterday, 57.8, right? 62.5, so
62.
They just got
and it's
bumped.
probably gonna go
But it
higher.
changes every 6 months.
Right, well,
They just
whatever they
increased.
need to change it, yeah.
So we're less than the IRS.
Yeah.
That's the first time.
No, we've been, that's why we've been in.
That's
In a
where the
hole.
problem's been, we've been messing with that for a very long time.
I think I'm on the right page this time. Purple vehicles, you're buying performance trucks.
I'm not even too.
He's on revenue.
You're done with revenue.
Still on the wrong page.
You're done with revenue.
What's Dan's question was about?
Took us back.
Yeah, we're done with revenue.
No, I had
a question on that.
Go ahead, Dave.
On your revenue fleet cars, looks like the revenues went up by $250,000.
Yeah, 'cause the rate's going up.
It's very
Yeah,
useful.
the rate.
Yeah.
So this number reflects a 30% increase to go from 45 cents to 60 cents.
So that's why every other committee we've been sitting on, the rates jump for the cars. Trying to cover some of the costs of all the stuff.
And I think it's obvious to everybody, the price of vehicles, fuel and everything involved with it is up. We're trying to make it pay for itself. That's the way it's supposed to. Sure.
I don't give a shit, otherwise we go past it, I'm gonna bring it back.
He's gonna let the car go right and buy them back up.
Override.
The carpool, yeah.
Oh, right, that's a good one.
It just,
Yeah, as far as I know it is. You mileage rate's the same. Yeah.
I don't. see.
Well, I don't think they've ever had a separate rate. That's. But you're right, it shouldn't be.
Are we done with carpool revenue?
Our lives.
Well,
Just Babs, go ahead.
I do want to point out that in the past, in interfund revenues, we would put what we needed. We just leave that for discussion now, right? So in expenses. So expenses, all of that is out of my control for the point ones and point nines. And then we have our equipment vehicle list, which is on the handout for today. Bob has a question.
Just want to know why Foreman's trucks cost 15 grand more than shop Foreman's truck.
Foreman's trucks cost more than a shop. Okay, so one of the visions that we have in the carpool is we have issues with the buildings and grounds vehicles. So in the past, we would drive our vehicles as Foreman trucks, and then we would pass them down for the crews to get to the job sites, and then we would send them over to buildings and grounds. That kind of doesn't work. Part of the reason is because they are crew cab trucks. So what we're trying to do with this is the shop foreman truck is not a crew cab truck, so it costs less. And that is going to enter the buildings and grounds replacement cycle. So we're trying to get that to where it's more sustainable. So
That's the answer.
That's it.
What's the question for you, Bob? You're still 3 behind Dan, though.
He didn't tell me, but place told me I was out of work.
I want to go to a Matt's question because we talked about this when the barns came up about fuel and diesel fuel or gas. I don't see why we wouldn't buy diesel fuel trucks going forward so that we didn't have to install gas at the new facilities and pay for 2 systems.
These, how many of these are gas trucks?
Oh, they're all gas trucks.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. All the pickups are.
So the expense is a little more, but the resale is a lot more.
Do you still have to plug them in the winter? Plug these
I
in the
never
winter?
plugged mine in the winter, but I'm sure people did.
Are they inside?
Well, they, right, I would think the newer trucks start pretty good, wouldn't you say, John?
I would say so.
Fast ones driving in.
Yeah.
Price difference. I don't know what the price difference is. I just know that the savings on not installing gasoline at Middle Falls and Fort Ann is quite a savings. And if you had some new diesel trucks, there'd be no gas trucks there. The other thing, you could just put a wet start in the gas truck and they fill up at a gas station.
Is there gonna be a need, any gas pumps?
Well, that was the thing. We don't believe there is at the new facilities, but that's up to the board.
You have to be in first.
You've got, if you're going to do that, I think there's quite a few different, I know the town of Easton uses it. we get billed once a month for our gas usage, for our pickup trucks. And there used to be other cars from visiting nurses with gas there. And I see the sheriffs there gassing all the time. So you're gonna really rearrange things if you don't put a gas pump. Just,
How many
so
visiting
don't
nurses?
mess things up. I mean, if you're gonna, Middle Fall, sheriff's department's there all the time.
No, do we have any visiting nurses?
Well, I don't know, but you have sheriffs.
Whitehall is the same.
So I mean, just be careful and plan ahead. If that's what it's gonna be, you're gonna really rearrange things. And I mean, everybody can live with it, but there's gonna be a triple or ripple down effect of cost.
If the sheriff has a Wex card, they can just go to Greenwich, or go to Fort Andrews.
They're there
Wex card.
anyway. or they
Well,
can-
I'm just saying that there's more people than just DPW users.
Right.
That's all. And so you want to sort that all out before you go down that road. That's all.
But you have to install, well, you don't have to, I guess we could just get Wex cards for gas trucks too if you want.
And the thing of it is, you got fuel tanks there now and enclosures that you probably could still use. I mean, we've just upgraded those. Those aren't that old.
Middle Hall.
Yeah. And we, wasn't that long ago that you put all the new features on there with all the electronics.
Well, it's a monitoring thing.
Yes.
So yes, there are a tremendous amount of other entities that use this. I was highly advised by DEC the other day to get rid of our gas.
Okay, so why don't you look at these?
Huh?
See what diesel price.
Well,
They're another 10,000.
this is the budget. You can bid them both and you can bring them back to DPW and let us decide, right?
Well, she's right. She was putting in the budget, she put in gas. If you guys want her to look at diesel, they're gonna be about 10 to 12,000 more a piece.
And when you sell them, you get 10 to 12
Yeah, well, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying.
So there's what, 12 vehicles? So that's 120,000.
No, it's not gonna be, they're not all.
No, only the
Just
trucks, the
on the
front
first
trucks, and the highway.
Or we have five.
Well, you could get electric if you want, Dave. I was gonna go diesel.
So 42,000 compared to.
Do you give yourself an extra cheeseburger every day if you put electric into a conversation?
No, I get one less, that's why I'm so, you know,
Why so smelly?
so I'm so lanky.
Unless you're Lincoln. The definition
I
of.
want to caution people, we throw the West card around quite a bit. There is a delta between the state contract and what you pay for Hope's gas.
And there's
It's
a
almost
hell of a
$1 a piece.
delta for what you pay for those pumps, keeping them up in the spill.
And I understand that, so we throw around West card, if we're using them. Not to explore that to make sure.
Yeah, no, we've talked about that coming up with a per gallon price of what it costs us to maintain just the gas. Because once you have a per gallon price for what it costs for all the gas pumps, upkeep, replacement, you get that over like a 20-year period, the price per gallon, you'll know how much more you can pay on gas and break even.
Yeah.
So there's a way to get there.
Because when they try and sell it to you, they make you think you're getting the state contract price, you're not getting.
And well, you never get the price you bid when you bid your fuel anyway. They charge you what they want. It didn't stay where we bid it last year. It went up just like it
Changes
did.
every 5 years.
Yes. Changes weekly.
DPW.
Okay, Deb, so when it's time to buy trucks, you gotta price both diesel and gas, so that you can decide.
Off topic, the engineering being done for those two bars now, right?
Well, yeah,
Are they engineering it with or without?
I have no idea. That would be a Matt Jones question at this point. Do you
All right.
know?
All right.
That's, yeah, that's,
So are we hung up here or to make a major decision? Or are we, is this the budget we can keep going with?
We're gonna keep going with it, you know?
Okay. I have to leave at noon and I just wanted to cover as much territory.
you were going for a record. You were gonna have more best, great questions than ever.
Did Jay really have questions?
No, well, I do, but when we get ready to bid them, there was some interest out here on the buildings and grounds, whether an electric pickup would work because it's right here.
We've been beating electric
Really?
So you got bid that
for years.
But the new Toyota Tundra electric costs $142,000.
It's gotta be, it's not $42,000.
Just think how much that would have made a difference.
Okay, moving
Any more
on.
questions on the 29 or 2070, the equipment vehicles? Okay. So let's see, anything else on here?
This is what Ken talked about yesterday, is this vehicle, right?
At the bottom.
It's the next.
Yeah, it's not a duplicate, it's the same.
Right, the same one, yeah.
Did you guys tell them okay?
Brian, what's not in Deb's or DSS's though is whatever your plan is for DSS, right?
Right, that's not in mine.
It wasn't in Tammy's, no decision's been made there yet.
I added that in after the meeting.
Oh, you
Because
have,
well, it's because it's 3/4 funded. I mean, why would you buy anything if you only buy 3 at a quarter of the price? It doesn't make sense to not fill our carpools.
For a year to hand them down to carpool.
No, we don't for 3.
Yeah, do
We could get them to 3.
Buy pickup trucks and everything. Yes, that's one.
If you can buy them for under 25,000. Throw them all.
Like the kind of kids play with.
Now with that, it's 7,500 off, so we're at 18. Zeros. Go on.
On page 9. On page 91. Some highlights on here are the 4110 insurance went up 15% across the board. It should actually be a little bit more than that, because we were under budget this year, but not under budget. We didn't budget enough for this year because the increase came out after budget last year. But I'm sure we'll be okay. I did not raise any of the fuel or heating oil lines, meaning fuel for heating natural gas. So just, well, I guess I raised it $500. I don't know, that was a typo. I didn't know if we were supposed to.
You had to. It's up.
What testing do you have under carpool? What do you call that?
To be honest.
We've never done it. We didn't do it in 20, 21, or 22 yet. There's no expense.
How do we inspect the cars?
Oh, maybe it's coming. Maybe it's
It's not
emissions.
inspecting. It's
That would be part of your inspection.
Or it could just be testing to make sure they're gonna pass,
the inspection.
whether you keep them or not.
The inspection is not.
Maybe he needs to buy a machine that reads the codes.
That's what I'm wondering.
For testing.
That might be $200.
A crazy question. Okay, these guys ask smart questions, I'm gonna ask a crazy question. Don't we charge this 0.60 or whatever it is back to the different departments? So why do we charge fuel again?
So we charge 45 cents right now for a per mile to the departments. This fuel line right here is for heating the carpool garage.
So it's not,
It's called fuel heating natural gas.
No,
Honestly,
I think she was talking about the auto fuel.
oh, we're down to
this-
there.
This is the expense side on it, so the, what you're seeing on the other was the revenue.
revenue. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So this is,
Do those numbers match?
Tried
We
to-
got auto fuel all throughout.
We tried like hell. Can I find 100% sure they matched? Not exactly, but
Well,
I'm trying.
I raised this one slightly due to the cost of fuel and gas.
But you didn't go down to 350.
an average.
What?
I still 350,000 back your number.
Yeah.
I still give you good.
So you went through every department?
Nope.
No,
I take what we've used for the past few years and looked at the trends and decided to move it. That I thought that would be a good number.
But shouldn't you be using all the other departments that use carpool that have a auto fuel expense?
Well, I think
Well, I
Those
am
numbers
kind
equal
of.
that.
I think she looks at the total, Dana,
That's what she
that
goes
they
on.
all use and then put a percentage.
So you can look up all the auto fuels.
so we went,
Not separately. I
so we
find-
both came up with the same percentage so we could change those numbers.
Oh, okay. So it's just a percent.
That's what we tried. Yes,
So it should be close.
it should be close. A year from now, I'll tell you a lot better.
Any other questions on page 91?
The only other increase is in outside services, that's like outside repair that you can't do yourself. And you're
Yes.
expecting the
Yep.
cost to go up.
That's as far as I saw.
So all good with carpool?
Oh, good.
Next up, we have County Road. And it's on page, it starts on page 92.
I have, I'm sorry, before we get off card, on the very top of page 92. Isn't that the totals that come from the bottom of 91? Why, what is CM carpool totals 0 if the bottom 91 is 1.4 million?
You make the revenues and the expenses match. Is that what you're asking?
I'm just wondering on why on the carpool totals.
It's the fund.
The funds are always
The fund
supposed,
balance, the balance.
right, the
Yeah, but
funds,
I don't think it balances.
The adopted and the requested did. Amended.
You see, that revenue expense are both the same.
right, once
Okay,
they're
so over here,
done.
that's where that zeros.
Yeah, so in other words, they're not.
Okay.
The fund balances, and there's no, technically, there's no general fund money goes into it. The general fund money is supporting it through all the different departments. So that's the idea.
Right, all the individual funds are supposed to zero out.
Everything before that pays for that.
But it never, is that the first time it's shown up like that way?
Yeah, carpool is supposed,
That is.
that's basically.
Carpool's supposed to, road machinery's supposed to. county
Yeah, road
road's supposed to.
machine.
All your small funds are supposed to. We try to make sure they get there. Once they're amended and everything throughout the year, that's why you have fund balance in those lines, so we can grow or.
And this actually, that's a good thing you pointed out. You see previous years. That's what it generated a revenue.
Are you on the bottom of page 91, Supervisor?
And see, yes, this year we're
About
running.
16,000, 56,000, are those the numbers you're looking at?
You're looking at
I was looking at the top of
the very top of 92.
Just the same numbers.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Because budget officer, that you told me you put 3 cars into DSS's budget after the meeting yesterday.
He didn't hear you. He didn't hear you.
That's what we're trying.
You put 3 cars in DSS budget after the meeting yesterday. So did you also change?
I haven't changed carpool yet.
So the 25% local share will be on that CM 99.
No, the 25% local share will be in the general funds.
You're not funding it from carpool this year.
No. I think it's smart for us to pay for our 25%. And just,
That's
So
why.
just the past few years you took it from carpool,
Yeah.
I was just asking.
well, I think
We
that's
did
helping
one,
to
and
ruin
we did
carpool,
two.
so that's why I put it, but that's why I asked the question. But it's debatable if we have to move it. If I need money, I'll move it.
That's good.
Are we all set then to go to
Well,
county?
one quick question for clarification, now that he brought that up, under where they're supposed to be balanced on the top of page 92. The 2 that are negative, that's because we bought ahead on the trucks, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
And we didn't budget enough for fuel and supplies too, so, right, last year, I mean, it cost us more to run the pool than what we took in.
But is the truck part of the problem?
What trucks?
We're back in carpool, you mean?
Right.
You want to know
That should have been
Every
road machine.
carpool, you're looking at road machinery.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, no, I'm wrong.
The last line is carpool.
Right, no, I don't.
Oh.
Dan's talking about. the
$500,000 wouldn't have been fuel.
Yes, we would have had $500,000 for fuel.
Just, oh, we put it in, we haven't
Yes.
used it all. Right, yes, I remember that, yeah.
Because we have no idea where the number is gonna be.
Are we set the county road now?
Ready?
Right. Action.
So I don't think there's any big revenue, interesting things on there. Interesting. That didn't go up too much considering we had all those raises.
Well, yeah, and that's what the problem is throughout the year. That's the problem with the whole budget this year, to be honest. Last year, when we talked everything in executive session, so nobody knew what we were doing, only the supervisors. And Al and I had this discussion just the other day because it just dawned on Al what was in last year's budget, the way it was presented. So the $1 million was in sales tax and the $1 million was in raised by taxes. Intended budget. The reason they were the same was so nobody could differentiate between the two because we're in negotiations and it just looked like an abstract number. When they weren't abstract numbers, they were the actual numbers. Now, were they a little off? Yeah, I think we moved $1,059,000 last month to pay salaries. Basically, it was supposed to match it. We were using fund balance, so nobody knew where it was coming from. So whenever I talked about the $1 million, I would always say $1 million was for capital plan, because I had $1 million for capital plan, and I could say that without showing our hand on any of our discussions. So when you came right down to it, when the $1 million came out of the taxes, well, that was your $1 million that would have paid those raises this year once the budget had passed. Once that left, that was actual fund balance. Now you've got to build the salaries in that were in the fund balance. So you're $1 million behind before you start. If sales tax had went to 28 million, you are good with sales tax staying the same without taxing for that increase. Now you've not just got to make up the 2.5%, you got to make up the $1 million. That's the dilemma and why everything looks out of sync, because we didn't budget for the actual cost because we were doing it in a way to not show our hands in negotiations. I thought I said it pretty clear, but once Al, the light bulb went on and goes, oh God, he realized it. And I'm thinking, well, I explained it, but I'm careful what I say when we're in negotiations. I've done a lot of negotiating. I know what not to say because what you don't say can't get repeated. That's where we're at. That's the dilemma, is that $1 million missing. It's $1 million for salaries.
That's it. $92, any questions on page 92?
Frank, just so I understand everything you just said, that instead of 2.5%, it's $1 million and 2.5%.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Because we settled the contracts, remember, 3 months after we passed the budget. So the budget was set originally to represent all that, but once we took that out, now that has to be made up somewhere. That's the dilemma. That's why everything looks so high. It's not like anything was hidden. It's just the way it had to be presented during negotiations. And that's why when I asked people to come to me last year and talk to me about it, I wanted to make sure everybody knew. And I don't know anybody that really approached me and asked any questions on that. So, you know, it's on me for maybe not making that clearer, but that's what was behind it. And that's the dilemma we're in now. And you need to know that, because that dilemma isn't going away unless we cut a lot of people. And I don't mean upgrades and new people. I mean, a lot of people that are here or not here, they're actually missing anyway.
But your point is baked in 23K. It's in here.
Yes, it has to be, because
We got it.
and it was baked in
We got it.
22s until we took it out.
Yeah.
Yes, that's all. And that's why I say to everyone, if you've got a question, come see me, ask. So, because something isn't getting out there.
So where is it baked in?
On every point one line there is in the
All the way
budget.
through the whole.
Yep,
Not on one line, no.
no, yeah, point one line. Point one line everywhere.
Are we ready? 93?
Any questions on 93? That's still revenue.
A little over $1 million increase.
And we've been there before, and things aren't going down in price. So that's, we've been at 10 million before.
No questions on 93, is there any on 94?
Basically, we're about $2 million additional revenues for budgeting. Just under. Right, total.
994 to 10.5.
No, total revenue is 14,420 to 16,195.
Yes,
So $120 million per figure total of everything included.
yeah, and part of that again is salaries that wasn't in last year.
Revenue.
Yeah. We have to put in more revenue to offset.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
Did you read?
Around
We're in
94,
expenses.
94,
94.
the bottom revenue total. What that was just asking about.
Yeah, okay, so 14, okay, I see, sorry. I was on. And then for expenses, are we ready for expenses?
We are ready.
Sign shop, that's all 0.1s and 0.9s. So on page 95. The contract expenses line 4040, that is $65,000. The road painting bid increased in 2022. So the bid for 2022. Well, the bid for 2021 was $62.95. And we don't put our bids out until after our budget's done. The bid for 2022 was $108 a mile. So it went from $62.95 to $108. We only had one bidder. It is $115 per mile for 2023. So that's reflected in that $15,000 increase.
And we used to own one and burned up. And the number was cost effective to own one again. Is it getting there now at these price jumps?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
It's a specialty vehicle. I bet that thing's over $300,000.
I can see how much they are.
I went by Auto Saver the other day and I called and asked because they had a 26-foot truck, just a 750 Ford F-750. And I thought, boy, that would be really nice for moving hay. We move a lot of hay. So I called them on the phone because I was nowhere on the phone. 118,000, which is just a flatbed truck. So I gotta believe the specialty trucks.
Yeah, I didn't get to that.
But we should look.
Are your point ones down because you've had a change in staffing in your office?
Are they down?
On the 50-10, Matt?
Yeah, we're 163 to 95.
In the sign shop.
It'd be.
We're in it.
Not that, I'm sorry.
Oh, and Ed, you're not gonna have.
I'm not to add, but I can explain that if you're done with sign shop. So in admin, everybody who's in admin now was not here for the most part. There's one girl who's here for like 4 months, 8 months before I started. So everybody's new. That's a lower reason. Linda, or the get her title.
Principal. She retired.
She retired. We were going to have her return part-time, but we realized that we were able to distribute those duties and we didn't need to bring back a part-time person. So part of that is, that's why it's so much lower.
I mean, it's a good thing. I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, it's just a lot of people, a lot of years of experience have retired.
When we started, there were 5 people in admin, sort of, because it included one in the shop, and now there's 3.
Yeah.
So on the next page 96 for admin, changing there. So on engineering, the 0.1s and 0.9s are there. On page 97 for engineering expenses. So this is where I wanted to talk about 4170, education, training, and staff development. You're gonna see that across the board in all the funds. So we had some conversations with DEC, and we have to train our people. And we're working with Soil and Water to do that, but there's other trainings that we're needing to do. So we put in some estimates for trainings for almost every department in all of our funds. So that's why that one. For the training. The mileage expenses, that's a reflection of the 30% increase from 45 cents to 60 cents. The outside services, the 4420, we're looking at a roadside artificial intelligence program that keeps track of our roads. Basically, it's you put it in the window and it drives around with whatever Jimmy's title is, and it analyzes all the roads, all the signs for reflectivity, all the pavement markings for being seen. And so that's in there. And then we added some money for red flag repairs based on our recent experience with some of the inspections that came back from DOT where they put a red flag, a 24-hour red flag on a road or a bridge that never had red flags before. So some of those may need engineered repairs that we are not capable of doing because we don't have the software. So that's why that line.
And is that outside service, is that a contract that you go around, check the roads with, or is that a piece of equipment that we purchase and have all the time?
It is web-based.
So it's a contract.
It's a contract.
Before you get off engineering, can you go back up to the bottom of page 96? Explain why the time and a half overtime has a large increase.
So on time and a half, so what has always been done in our department, that's a good question, I wanted to go over that, is when people worked overtime in engineering, they got comp time. It's more beneficial to our department to actually have people here. So I was hoping to pay them overtime and give them comp time. So they're actually here to get comp for it.
The line above that, do you have a lot of part-time help or is it?
We have one part-timer, well, two, sorry. We have Dick, who does all of our bridge inspections. He retired and then came back part-time, so he does all our bridge inspections. And then we have a pavement management intern, which is a college kid who works in the summer, helps Dick with the inspections, and for the most part enters everything into our computer system when there are breaks and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yep. Is everybody okay with the overtime instead of comp time? Is there
No, that is
any more in engineering? So next is maintenance, always a fun one. That's, so on the next page 98, if there's no questions about equipment or equipment.
Well, the maintenance point one, pretty good pop. 1.7 to 1.92.
Yeah, but look at the 1.852, because that's the new salary.
But what you're saying is that
That's
we're
the,
probably under for this year, so we had to bump it up for next year.
no, the 1.852, the amended budget number is the new salary increases. So it's not the adopted budget that we just moved the money the other day. That's the difference is actually that, the 70,000.
What we do when we do our point ones for this fund is we try to put them where we best think they'll be. Like if it's a very busy winter of plowing, there won't be as much maintenance. So it's not ever an exact science in that one. But it does all that. So on page 98.
So yeah, Matt, on the point one is the only time the amended budget isn't a number that was changed from what was added. It's gonna be like the sheriffs that are still on their old contract. So, and, you know, so that you'll still see the difference of whatever the percentage change was, but it won't be what last year was.
So in maintenance, under contract expenses, 40 line, which is about halfway down. That's where our summer machinery rental is and our mowing contracts with the towns. So that reflects increases in both of those. It also assumes everybody's coming back to mow for us.
But everybody does it. Those that do, does that mean we get a raise?
Well, everybody doesn't. Well, there's money in there that you can bring to commit.
If Gravel does it, do we get to take their share and what?
Mow our roadside.
Yeah, mow their roads. Awesome.
I don't know, Matt, that might be dangerous. They might think that's part of Whitehall, you know. You might want to put up a border.
So there's other ones. The education training staff is raised significantly for DEC mandates and other training for our guys. When we get to machinery rental, I wanted to have a conversation about that. So the machinery rental comes from the 2017 DOT rates, which we feel are vastly under what they should be.
Let's give an example. In 2017, to buy a brand new truck, the way we do plow truck, the whole bit, was about $250, $275. To buy one today is like $3 1/4, but you have to go off the old rate. So it might even be less than that. So what Deb's reached out to other counties, there was one county that would go up a certain percentage a year to figure that rate so that it's built in, so that when you're replacing a vehicle that you thought was going to be $250 and it's $350, you've got the money to do it. So that's one of the bigger increases here, was trying to figure that out, because the state doesn't want to change it because they're not going to pay you any different on the snow and ice contract. So they want to leave the rates low, so they send us less money, but it's still going to cost us what it's going to cost us. So we can't do much about that, but we can do it within our own system so that we have the money to buy the stuff later on, because it is supposed to work like carpool does and rejuvenate the money to that account to buy new equipment. So if you wait 7 years at that old rate and the price increases $100,000 for that one piece of equipment that you bought 12 of, it's a problem.
Isn't this the old adage of Alan Brown saying that we're not breaking even, and now you're saying we're not gonna break even on?
We'll break even snow and ice. That's not the situation. I'm telling you why they aren't changing the rates. The state wants to pay us less money, so they don't change our rates. Because if they change the rates every year, our rate would go up and we'd see what the price of all this equipment is. They don't change the rate so they can pay us less. They will eventually change it, but they're always 7 years behind, so it hurts our own system.
Not if we don't do it. If we don't do the state contract, right?
But the state contract has nothing to do, no, the state contract is what they pay us a rate for.
Right.
We set that so we get paid for what we do. We don't have a problem with that. The problem is the reason they don't change the rate every year, because if we change it every year, our rate, what we pay to establish the equipment we buy, would go up every year. You'd always be adding to that and putting in more because your replacement, when stuff's being replaced 7 or 8 years, it's gone up considerably. If they don't change that rate for 7 or 8 years, you haven't put enough away to buy it. So what Deb's saying is, if you increase that gradual, just like they are the price of real equipment that you're buying, then the money's always there at replacement time. It's kind of what has to happen. It's the same as our mileage rate. If we didn't increase it at all, it finally kills carpool. Then you have to increase it so it funds carpool.
I think you worded the question wrong.
So Dan,
That wasn't a good question,
Dan,
sorry.
we use, Dan, the simple thing is we were using the state rates to charge ourselves so that we had money to buy equipment.
Right,
The state rates are too low.
right.
Okay,
Yes.
so Deb has stepped it up so that we're getting enough money coming back in to
Right,
cover our costs.
I like that explanation, but also the bottom line is, should we tell the state we need a higher rate for snow?
They won't give it to
They
you.
won't give it to you.
And yet, there's no gun to our head that we have to do that job, correct?
Right.
Well, there
Okay,
is
that
an-
was all I was saying. Maybe we should tell the state, you need an increase this year or we can't do it.
Well, if we have a mild year, we're still guaranteed like 67% of the contract that we sign. So if we don't plow.
We always make
we
money on
Still
that.
make money on it. One thing, one reason not to do that.
What you're saying?
And the other, with the state is not exactly explaining it that way.
I know.
They were set to update their rates chart in 2018, no, 2020. And COVID hit, so they were afraid to update it, and they haven't updated it yet.
And they're really afraid to update it now.
I can do a 2% per year, which is what I did. I added 12% to this line. I did not add 12% to the state snow line. But I added 12% this time. The other way I can do it is the FEMA rates, which get updated every year, but it's very similar to the 12%.
Well, it was real and it was fun, but it wasn't real fun.
Hey, but you had great questions and I do appreciate that. Thanks, Dan.
So that's the machinery rental. The mileage is again, the raising the rate 30% from 45 cents to 60 cents.
I don't know if you want to do it now or with road machinery, but the total of all our road machinery expenses in county road are $3,136,700. And it's $3,127,600 on the road machine side, so it's not a lot of money, but it's,
Give me the number again.
it's $3,136,700 is the total of all the machinery rental within the county road.
So are you saying it didn't match?
It doesn't match,
By how much?
$6,000-ish. It's not a lot of
Pretty
money.
close.
What was
Pretty
the other one?
close on
3
3
what?
million.
It should be $3,136,700.
No, but what's the number we have?
$3,127,600.
Oh, I mean,
It's not a lot of money.
Less than
but-
1.5%.
It's not a fireable mistake.
I'll take every dollar I can get, Supervisor.
I understand completely. That's a lie at this point.
We're still stuck on 99 cents. Bob at 105, I don't think we with him, but we're still stuck on 99.
99, 98. Are you on page 99?
Sorry, John, I let you brag.
Between you and Bob, you'll have me on it.
Well, you were all happy with the bridge
Well, I read
projects and
much.
road projects then?
We'll get the personnel next.
So any more on 98?
Go ahead. 99.
99 is road projects. So you have the list of road projects. Let's see, some pointers on. Then when you go to bridge projects. So on bridge projects, we have 2 bridge building teams, and we have a lot of work to do. So we put money in the tools line for this because they need new tools. So that's what those new lines are.
That used to be in supplies.
Yes. Yep. And they were in supplies other under maintenance.
But you greatly increased supplies other maintenance.
The increase in supplies under maintenance is, so a lot of things went up. So concrete went up drastically. Stone went up, gravel went up. Our culverts increased. Let's see, I can tell you how much we increased the budget. So for example, our culverts, last year, we budgeted 50,000. This year, we had budgets, for next year, we have to budget 75,000. The stone budget last year was 55,000. We had to increase that to 80. It's the same for gravel. Guide rail, we increased that budget by 2,000, which is not much.
Is that why bridge project contractual went from 600 to 900, 610 to 948? Is that where those things live? Sorry, my
Bridge projects on page 100,
Yeah.
948.
51, 2402 went from 610 to 948. Is that
I know
those things you were talking about?
I will get to that. That is what we want to do for our projects. But I just wanted to point out one more thing real quick before I forget, because it's kind of important, is in the 4280 line that I was just talking about, we have to replace the roof on the Eagleville Bridge, so that was $40,000. That's in supplies other. But that goes hand in hand with the bridge projects, because the bridge projects, you have that list there. I could hire 10 more guys and get a couple more bridge.
Yeah, we have bridge project.
Mistake number 2.
So
You
you
get one more.
plan to do more, you hope to do more.
Yes.
You may not get to there, but you're budgeting to do more if it allows.
Right.
Yes, we are budgeting to do 2 bridges on 74 because we love County Route 74.
I think you're in Easton now, you're not on
It is
Ryan anymore, thank God.
Well, Dan's gonna need to cut those out. Go ahead.
There is a, one of those is a rehab. It's not a total replacement.
Where that's
It's
right.
They're down by that gas chains or that chainsaw selling place.
Oh, Kirsty.
Curtis's.
Yes. Yep. There's a bridge on 31 in Hebron. I'll send these out to you guys. I'm sorry. There's a bridge on 31 in Hebron that we inspect, the state doesn't. And that one is in desperate need of being replaced. Our County Route 153 project that we just can't get anybody to fix for us is still on there. It's been on there for 4 years now. That's where we have to put shotcrete in. We can't do it. We can do most of the work, but we can't put the shotcrete in. So we're still looking for somebody to do that. We were unable to do it this year, so we're putting it on next year. And then the last bridge on there is the County Route 46 bridge that got the red flag that we have, that we had to post. We had to move the load off the beam. That was the emergency project this summer. So we're replacing that next summer.
We can come up with a shot. Yeah.
You can?
Yes,
Is that like gunite for pool?
it's something like it, but they spray it.
Yeah. If we do
All
it
your
this
silo
year-
repair companies do it, so there's gotta be one that's gonna be in the area.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
So you're budgeting that you're gonna have the people, you can get to the bridges, you're gonna have those supply chain issues gone, and you can get and do them all, the weather's perfect.
That's
That's what you're budgeting for.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you have for
Right.
breakfast?
Well, no, I mean, that's what the number, that's why the numbers are high.
If you look back,
In
we've
best case
budgeted,
scenario.
yeah,
Right.
we've budgeted that way before. And
Okay.
Sometimes we're successful.
This year we had, DEC delayed us.
We all
Well,
set
we
on
delayed
bridges then?
Any questions on the sheet that I didn't give you?
You got towing expense to tow the bridge from here to the midweek.
Dave's Bridge.
Is that one of those Champlain bridges? Champlain, I mean. That's an Ida Bridge.
Maybe bridge.
Yeah, I do.
So the snow removal county and snow removal state, the only thing I want to point out, and it's pretty important, is county snow or salt budget. The salt was bid at $64.27 per ton last year. It's $83.04 this year. This price is not reflected in the budget as the bids came back after budget.
That'll spin it back a little bit, go a little slower.
We're really working on that. We're doing
Well, pray for
We won't
them.
use as much because we're gonna do that grind machine.
Yep,
Well,
I put
the
hopefully
grind
it
will
is a
help.
light year.
Gotta take salt to make it
Yeah.
Can't get you behind it. Any
It
more?
ain't yet.
Huh?
It's-
No,
it's all-
mid-October now.
I will be there watching.
Okay, any more questions on the county road budget? So now we will go to page 102. County machine. Any questions on revenue? I upped the gas, not quite as much as we upped it this year, just a best guess on what the gas would be. I guess fuel. So this, on page 103 at the top, that's the line that Al was pointing out that was not, it was $6,000 short.
It's 9,100, right?
It's supposed to be 30,000, 3,120,000.
3,136,700.
At the bottom of that is the point ones and the benefits. On page 104 is 2070 equipment vehicles. So we have the automatic trucks, 4 automatic trucks to keep in our replacement schedule. That was price that we were given. The Joma blades that go on them. We are trying a different kind of blade, northern blade. So that's why we're only buying 3 Joma blades and 1 of the northern blades, so that we have all the blades we need for our trucks. We have our mower tractor that we've been trying to get with a better price on it now, so we're hoping that will go through this year. We would like to purchase a skid steer. Let's see, how does this go? The skid steer that we have for the paving crew now is the new one we bought a few years ago in 2018, I believe. And that would go to the bridge crew. The bridge crew would go to the shop to replace, I think it's a 1991, it's the early 1990s that came from solid waste. So that's why we would like a skid steer, and we would like a truck to replace this other truck that currently hauls the skid steer around. That truck, we will build a bed on it so that it will carry the skid steer and the infants.
Questions?
The 2090 is the miscellaneous little equipment. It's a long line. For a relatively low dollar amount.
Did you get some of this off federal bids?
Federal bids,
Yeah, because it's screwdriver for $40.
Put some NASA, speak to NASA.
That's a screwdriver.
Maybe Tito's.
Partly done.
What are
Oh, this is
pinchies,
screwdriver.
pinchies and cheezels?
Probably a screwdriver set.
It probably is.
set of
It's probably a set of screwdrivers.
something. I don't know.
Punches and chisels. They're always together. Or unless it's
I will find.
needle
out
nose
about-
pliers, it could be pinchies and chisels.
That's a good question. $40.
It probably is a
That's all
set.
set.
Got the S.
Either a set or some real.
Hey,
Or the special star.
At least it's the wrenches and not wrenches. That would have been fire.
I'm glad you said that.
Anybody.
Where do we use?
Huh?
Where do we use it? The power glue one.
Yeah, for the weed whacker.
So, when we have, trees come down, it's easier than bringing the, broom tractor out. So,
Gotcha.
We're gonna have 6 manual operating rooms.
It probably costs
but
more
we only
now.
have,
Then we have
like
like,
one
Yeah,
person
workman's
left to
comp.
put them.
That's
So,
Oh, they can do one each hand.
and that is continued on the next page. There is, the next one is some bigger, an RE conditioning machine, is an air conditioning machine.
There's no something, God damn it. I was getting excited here.
We have a MIG welder, is that like so?
Is that
I didn't know.
Air conditioner.
That's flywheel.
$7,000, it's like a mini split or something.
That's the machine to
Yes,
put it in,
to
take it
charge.
out of the system.
To charge trucks up.
Oh. I mean, you can go to a hardware store and buy it for $25.
What?
A Freon charger for your car.
Yeah. it's
What
the
is-
one that-
what is
it's the
this?
one that takes it all out.
Oh, extracts.
Yeah, this is more. The price
And
is
then they
more.
can fix.
And they have to have it
Yeah.
for the trade.
And then
That way you don't lose it. You put it back.
But you're not paying that for it. That's
Too big of a sense of no reason.
The 40/40 contract expenses, so previously, every 3 years, we had to put in, I believe it was an $80,000 purchase for our GPS systems, and we've switched to Verizon. And it is cheap, so now it'll be 17,500 a year. It'll be spread out. It'll be an annual cost. It's monthly that we pay for these GPSs, but it won't be every 3 years we have a big lump sum. So that's why this one is fun. Electric, I didn't do that. Did you do that?
Yes, but I changed it. It's gonna be down 39,000. So if the other one's up 9, you're gonna have 30,000 savings.
Go ahead.
But I'm just curious, I just heard you say that the contract went down. The contract in actual 2020 was 10,000, actual 21 was 8,700, and you budgeted 35,000.
Where's that?
The
40/40.
40/40 contract.
Because I thought I heard you say the contract went down.
The contract previously was a 3-year renewal, so every 3 years it would go up by, I believe it was $80,000. Now, we are going with Verizon and it's an annual charge.
So my confusion is we spent 10,000 in 2020, 8,000 in 2020. We're budgeting 35.
Well,
I'm just asking, I don't understand.
our budget last year was 20 and we added for Verizon this year.
We're not gonna spend 20 this year. We didn't spend 20 last year.
This is one of those lines where you never know what your contract expenses are gonna be.
So.
No, you don't.
Was that Verizon?
So the other one wasn't a
This is not
contract?
just Verizon. I mean, I can print out what this is for. I don't know.
Well, I mean, year to date, 6,500.
Can you pull up what we pulled out of there recently, or in previous years now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, are we doing more GPSs? Is that why it's up? Or are we doing the same amount? of
Did you used to
I-
only get billed on the third year before?
Yes.
Yes, now you're doing it every single year versus a one lump sum. on
So next year should be-
two.
The 20,000 this year is not for, the $20,000 budgeted this year
Oh, it doesn't
is not
include-
for Verizon. Part of it is for Verizon because we started in September. So we worked this into the budget last year. We worked September through December, Verizon charges into our contract expenses last year, but there are other contract expenses.
So that's why your actual is only 65, because September to December as at the actual. Year. That makes sense.
No, it's 65, it's just for Verizon, for a lot of other stuff.
Right,
It's other.
and so the Verizon was yet to even hit it yet, so.
The GPS is just in the DPW trust, right?
GPS is, yes, it is in, there's 80 units. It's in machinery, it's in pickup trucks.
Not just a bluff.
Oh, no, not just pickup trucks. There's 80 units at $17.95 a month, which is $17,500 a year. So that's still less than what we were paying with St. Sarah.
And it was 80 units with them too.
Yes.
So you're saying 19 was a big year, you paid it all in lump sum up front.
Yes.
This one here, you're just gonna pay yearly, so we need to know what 19 is actual.
Well, 19's action. There's other stuff in there. That's what we're
Right,
looking
but
at.
if
It's
that
what we
was a one
spent.
lump sum, it should be huge. Right, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Seems like outside services went quite a bit.
Yeah, so I didn't know if I should address that before or now. So now I didn't do it. So we have to do some maintenance work for our people, is one thing. And we have to do some work on the gas system and getting it decommissioned in Jackson.
We did the live payment, we did a warranty. Paper last year.
Most, no, we bought it, did we buy it last year? or the year before? Most people do the maintenance on theirs every year. We are doing ours every other year because we don't use it every single day, like say somebody like Beckham does. So there's some screed work that they want to do on it. Other repairs.
What's the decommissioning cost for a gas system? Well, it's very interesting because when you think of the gas system, just having that discussion.
So what happened with the gas? We we were not gonna sell gas out there. During COVID, it got filled because it's here, so everybody, they got filled. So when we went and did the new electronic system that I think Dana was talking about, where we upgraded everything so that it's all electronic now. The guy who was doing the work on that found a sheen in this container thing that's underground. So DEC opened a spill. So we were trying to watch the spill and see what happened and all that stuff. What we found is DEC highly recommends we just take the gas out and only have fuel over there. So when we were trying to get people to do this spill for us, the cost just kept going up and up and up. And at this point right now, we have one company that will give us a quote on it. So I talked to DEC, they said if we want to dig it all out ourselves, we have to haul it away to the dirty dirt. We have things we have to do, but we're planning on decommissioning it ourselves.
Was EMS the one?
It's the county engineer and team, and the engineer. So you know how
Well, I'm
Matt
thinking
Jones has a county engineer.
we have one right in the, I think he's in the IDA part. I'm not actually sure because I've had to use him as far as EMS, environmental something. They were reasonable, but on the farm spill is a lot different than a municipal spill or a commercial spill. And all we had to do was just remove tanks and they didn't find much, but it was very reasonable to have them come in, and it's a one-man show. I gotta believe he'd be reasonable to bid it if he knew to bid it.
So the outside services will not, even though we're doing it ourselves, it's disposal costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they make you burn the dirt.
Yeah, it's, we don't know how much it's gonna cost, so we put some money in there. But it's clear that it's going to touch this.
And we're not putting gas back in jet,
No,
just diesel.
yes. And we're moving the pump over to the tank like Granville, so there's nothing underground. So that's that.
Bill number 19.
What's that?
85,800. So that's what it is. Yep. Very good.
Future.
Yeah, on the last page and a half. You're in the school district.
Would you have 85,800?
For 19.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where that.
that makes sense.
Anybody else have any more questions for Deb?
Oh, we have to talk about our people. Right?
Talk about your people.
Smaller or?
Well, we've got smaller. So I'll talk about that one first. So in the office, we have someone who has been in a position for 3 years and then asking for an upgrade. They took on new duties. They do the federal order clearinghouse for the county and the towns. That's not something that we used to have. Side letters, working on overweight permits, Rex cards, LTSA letters. So basically, they've taken on new duties. They've been in this position for 3 years, and I'm hoping to ask for an upgrade for that one from senior account clerk to a we know Melissa.
Seniors at 10, bookkeepers at 13.
The other one is when last year I took the duties of the carpool manager out of county machine because we didn't have a county machine person. So we gave all the duties that and it's in between funds too, which I never could understand. So I'm asking to give a 2 pay grade upgrade to the carpool head mechanic for taking on all the duties of doing all of the bidding, which used to be done in county machine. And what else is he doing? Bidding. That's the new thing.
That was the shop supervisor position?
Yes, it's shop supervisor.
So we don't let you find a new.
Yes, it's on the list.
It's coming.
It's a secret, let's get into the stuff in an executive session.
Is it in 3 ring binders?
Again, do we bring a letter?
We get a whole new binder.
No, you gotta have
Value.
client, legal, privilege.
Right.
That's how we do it, the idea.
No, it's all gonna be part of the personnel discussion.
We'll need 6 days review. before we-
Oh, you'll get it.
Yeah. Well, the idea.
When we get all done with that, Matt, no department head's gonna come during mid-year, right? You're gonna have it all set, right?
Yeah, with it.
They may not be speaking to us.
That's the sham plan.
Lake Champlain.
That's the sham plan.
We're gonna charge us Lake Champlain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else come before the committee? Right, I'm adjourning mine,
I'm adjourned, we're adjourned.
and you didn't beat, so you're 30 minutes.
I will